What is going on, guys? It is Trifecta J here with episode 8 of my Braves franchise, and this is not going to be an episode with any game in it, but just an update on this franchise and the prospects and also the first year player draft. But we do have an injury. Matt Lipka, a center fielder, has dislocated his ankle seal. He is out for pretty much the entire season, but we do have some updates on our prospect. Chris Wisler, one of the guys that we just acquired, his stock is riding along with Mike Fultonevich, who is now going up after an excellent start to the year in AAA and also playing pretty well in the majors. But with the Lipka injury, Malik Smith, one of our better prospects, has now been called up to AA and will be a reserved outfielder there. We now sit 8.5 games back from the Nationals. We are 24-29 and are 4-6 in our last 10. We won our last game before this episode, but we have lost a good bit before that, and we're on a pretty heavy losing streak. But the leader in home runs right now is Chris Bryant, one of the best prospects in all of the majors, who is called up as hitting 17 home runs right now. Giancarlo Stanton has 44 RBIs, Bryant has 43 RBIs, and Christian Yelich is leading the National League in batting average. Adam Wainwright leads the NL in wins with 9. Garrett Cole, Jimmy Nelson have 7. Jordan Zimmerman has a below 2 ERA, 1.57, absolutely incredible. A great start to the year for him along with Matt Cain and Adam Wainwright. Julio Teheran is up there also. Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke both have 80 strikeouts along with Steven Strasburg, so 3 really good pitchers. And now a look at our roster and our stats. Freddie Freeman hitting 283, Nick Markakis going on a little bit of a cold streak, only hitting 245. Chris Johnson has really surprised me, hitting 341 and over 400 against left-handers, as that's pretty much his role right now, basically only hitting against left-handers. He could be a guy that we look to move at the trade deadline, especially with how well he's performing. So now a look at the team rankings. We are 23rd in batting average, only one person hitting over 280, as Cameron Maybin in our second with 260, so not great. 29th in home runs, Freddie Freeman at 9, and then the next are all below 5. So that's pretty bad. That's something that we somewhat expected. And now compared to last year, not as many home runs, but we're striking out a whole lot less. So it's sort of a give and take type thing. Our ERA is actually 8th in all of the majors, so that's nice to see. Shelby Miller, Julio Teheran, and Alex Wood all pitching very well. Teheran 62 strikeouts, but we are 21st in that area, with Shelby Miller having 57 and Alex Wood with 54. Now a prospect update. Matt Wisler is pitching very, very well in AAA. A 2.44 ERA in 11 games, 66 strikeouts. Jose Peraza struggling a little bit, only hitting 250, has struck out 39 times, only hitting 211 against left-handed pitchers. Max Fried in AA is absolutely not doing very well at all. 8.35 ERA, has really struggled with the walks and just getting people out. Lucas Sims pitching a little bit, actually a lot better in AA, 3.45 ERA, averaging a good bit of walks and struggling somewhat with his command, but opponents are hitting 228 against him. Now Christian Bethancourt we sent down, he is hitting 143, only 28 at bats, so not a ton of opportunities down there yet. Ricardo Sanchez has been called up to AA, but right now is strictly a long reliever, only in 6 innings so far in 3 games, so hasn't pitched a whole ton. Rio Ruiz is really starting to turn heads in the organization. A 437 OBP along with 7 home runs, so he's playing incredibly well. Malik Smith, who has just been called up, has 36 at bats and has really struggled in those limited opportunities. 139. 188 for Braxton Davidson. He's a left fielder who has moved from first base, has really struggled. A 188 average, but 291 OBP. Jason Heyward in AA, a 2.42 ERA in 70 innings. He is pitching very well. He might be a guy who gets called up to AAA by the end of the year. But now we move into the first year player draft, and this is going to be probably a pretty exciting thing, I would think, as we now look at the first couple of players selected. Alex Berman, William Young, a catcher and first baseman, Alan Adams, a starting pitcher who is a pretty solid player. But this class has very deep pitching. You can see 3 guys with 99 potential, 6'4", 6'5", both right-handers. Ken Dobson at 21 years old, and then Jorge Lerma, 18 years old, 6'5", has great potential. But the guy we would end up going with is Ken Dotson. He had the quickest MLB ETA. He had that size I wanted, and he was a mix between the age. Wasn't 18 like Lerma, but also wasn't 22. So we look at the end of that first round. And now with our second pick, there was a guy that I had pretty much been scouting out, and I was so happy he survived to us, Doug Shaber. He's really far away from the majors, only 18 years old, a 6'5 prospect with a potential. I think he could be very good. It's just a matter of him actually getting to the majors, as right now we don't really have a catcher of the future, as Christian Bethancourt has really struggled. Now into the second round, but our third pick, Floyd Abercrombie, another 6'5 prospect, 22 years old, out of LSU. He appears to be a very talented player, has a high heater and can really get up there, also has some nice break to his pitches. So with our third round pick, looking at some first basemen, mainly we do have Freddie Freeman, but other than that, not a lot of organizational depth. The backup two guys that we actually have are relatively old, so we go with Jordan Backen, a 19-year-old first baseman out of a junior college. He is also 6'5", so our first four picks have all been 6'5". With our next pick, we're looking at Jose Guerrero, a 22-year-old. He has a pretty quick MLB ETA, looks to be a very hard thrower with some nice potential, and he is out of Virginia. He looks to be a very talented guy, though. Hey, look at some of the other people. Now into round 5, and with this pick, still looking at some more organizational depth for the first base spot, and we're looking at Darius Crowley. He's 21 years old, a long way away from the majors. Also has the ability to play a little bit of left field, but a pretty good prospect out of TCU. As we go into the 6th round, our options are getting a little thinner and thinner. Robert Rubio, a guy I didn't know a ton about, but he looked pretty interesting, 6'2", 21 years old. And he's a right-hander, looks to be pretty quick to the MLB, but pretty much it's just a shot in the dark. Moving into the 7th round, this is where it really gets incredibly thin. Looking at Alberto Barrios, a 5'10" second baseman, pretty much ended up picking him basically because he's 18 years old. None of the options really had much potential. A recap of the first round, a catcher, first baseman, starting pitcher, closing pitcher, first baseman, and left fielder are your top 6 picks. Now a look at our prospects that we signed. Ken Dobson, he looks to be everything I wanted. He has that high heat, has some break to his pitches, needs to work a little bit on his control. Doug Shaver, 18 years old, has the ability to actually play second and third base. Might develop into a nice hitter, at least contact-wise. Not much else, definitely a long way away from the majors. Floyd Abercrombie, like I said, 6'5", 22 years old, and he's got maybe the ability to be pretty quick to the majors. Not great makeup, but has the pitching and pure talent to get there. Jared Backen, 6'5", and he has that contact rating that might push him through the minors very quickly. Very good against right-handed pitchers. Jose Guerrero, 6'2", 22 years old, and he looks to be an absolute flamethrower. Has got to work on his control, though. That's probably the biggest issue. Maybe ability to be stretched out and turned into a starter. Darius Crowley, 21 years old, and a long way away from the majors, but just needed him as depth in our organization. Robert Rubio, for being what I would consider a bust, I thought he would be better than this. He does have that velocity and pure talent in his velocity and his break. And then our final pick is Alberto Barrios, an 18-year-old. Actually has some nice contact ratings, but I'm not really sure how much he would develop. But that will pretty much do it for this update. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please leave a like down below. Leave your comments on the organization so far and also our draft picks. Who are you excited for? What did you think of the draft as a whole? I will see you for episode 9 when we return with some games, because I'm out.